All right, you've gotten your bargain home, and you're anxious to plug it in and see how it runs. All I can tell you is don't, not yet. There may be some bad news waiting for you inside the headstock. Chances are that people have been in there before you who didn't know what they were doing. And I'm going to tell you that the evidence is strong for this one because I've got 4 different types of screws holding the motor pan on. So then, and a 5th type of screw holding the headstock cover on. So I know that people have been in here monkeying around. The other thing is I don't like the way the electrical cord feels. If I take it and bend it, it crackles. So there's something going on there. Either the cord has been overheated from running this too hard, or it has just gotten, the insulation has just gotten brittle with age. One of the two. It doesn't sound good. Before you can safely turn on your Mark V, you need to do a thorough inspection of the headstock, and that's what we're going to do today. I've just finished polishing the way tubes a little bit. Not as much as I'm going to polish them later on, but enough that the headstock slides a little bit easier than it did. Still not as easy as I'd like, but it's coming along. Enough that I can get this off the way tubes. Now, when I polished it out, I'm using the green Scotch-Brite. This is the roughest Scotch-Brite that you can get, the coarsest abrasive. That takes most of the rust off, and then I attack it with some 600 wet dry sandpaper. That starts to put a shine on it. Finally, this 1800 grit crocus cloth, 1800. You can get this at most automotive stores. Crocus cloth, as I told you in the last session, is an abrasive that has cloth-like properties, and this really starts to put a nice fine shine on this. Surprisingly, these way tubes are in very, very good condition. There's a little tiny bit of pitting, but certainly not enough that we're going to have to replace the way tubes. The main thing is just going to be to take them down a little further and polish them up and get everything sliding nicely. So we lucked out there. I'm ready now to pull this headstock off. I could take it apart on the way tubes, but it's a big pain in the neck. What I've got over here is a carriage that I borrowed from Dr. Shopsmith, Sue Powell, and in refurbishing, and this holds the headstock nicely. If you don't have one of these, just 2 4x4 blocks to keep it from rolling around will do just fine. In addition to something to hold the headstock on, you're going to need your 5 32nd-inch Allen wrench, a 3 32nd-inch Allen wrench, and both a blade and a Phillips screwdriver. Here I've got a 4-way. I've also got some hammers, a regular hammer, a rubber hammer, and most importantly, and you'll find out why we need this pretty soon, a board with a 1-inch hole in it. This is a 1x2, about 12 inches long, with a 1-inch hole through the center. Okay, to get the headstock off, get the weight tubes to where it slides easily enough. See that? I just, whoop, you can see how easily it's sliding now. There we go. What I've done is just adjusted the table to a height, put a block of wood underneath there, and this holds this at an angle that I can now get the end off these way tubes. This end is attached with 5 36-inch Allen screws, and I just have to loosen those, and then beat them with a rubber hammer. They don't usually come anywhere near this easily. especially after they've been on there for a long time. I'm going to have to say that because of two things. First of all, the how little rust there is on this, really and truly. I mean, look at this. There wasn't any rust, just a little corrosion, but from the aluminum, but no real rust underneath here. There's no real rust on the inside of the way tubes. This was probably put away by somebody who knew machinery. He probably sprayed it with WD-40 or something similar. And the other reason I think of that is because I'm getting absolutely filthy as I'm doing this. This is a greasy machine, so something has been sprayed on here to keep it from rusting, and then it's just gotten oily and sticky and greasy. Let me put the tie bar back there, and this should just come off the end. Put that in the carriage. Now, first thing, I'm going to take this clamp off here and turn this around so I don't have to dance around this machine and you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take the cover off the back of the headstock. We're going to begin there. There should be 2 screws holding it. At the present time, there's only one. Now, we know from turning this that there's something wrong with the speed changing mechanism. Right away, I can see that the drive belt is off. And I can also see that the sheaves, the drive sheaves, are frozen. This sheave should slide towards me as I pull on it, but it doesn't. So that's frozen for some reason. I'm going to pop the medallion off. You just pull it off. The spring snaps, and look in here, and I can feel the floating sheave in here, and if I turn this arm, nothing happens. It doesn't go back and forth. So this might be frozen as well. We'll have to get in there and see and find out more about that as we go. Let's proceed with let's get these sheaves unfrozen first. There is a spring and a keeper here. Now the keeper on the spring won't be the same for later models, but it's this cup right now that's over the spring, and there's quite a bit of tension behind that spring. And what we need to do is take this wooden board, and we're going to put that on top of this cup, and we're going to push down like this so that we can get at that snap ring washer in there, which is something I forgot to tell you about. Another thing that you'll need is a pair of small snap ring pliers. I have attached some strips of inner tube to either side of this the cradle here. Now, if you don't have a cradle, there's no problem. You can just wrap the inner tubes around the Mark V itself. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put. First of all, I'm going to go back and clamp this down again. You can see why. One end of the board through the rubber on this side, the rubber loop that I've made. I've just tied a square knot in those strips. Put this over here, pull down on this, and bring it over there, and that'll hold it down enough that I can get at that spring washer here. Now, at this point, I really am going to need my glasses for 2 reasons. Not only safety, but to see what I'm doing. we go. There's the snap ring. Now, I'm going to try to, as carefully as I can, release the tension. I hope this doesn't become a jack-in-the-box. Put this aside. This is very, very greasy. And I'm going to take a claw hammer and a screwdriver over here and see if I can't get these sheaves to move. It seems pretty tight, but if I put the claw under here and pry it gently, I'll be darned. Okay, that is what is usually wrong with these things. It wasn't frozen. It's not rusted up. What's happened is the oil has turned to grease, and grease has turned to acumpunky, and it's just in bad need of some new lubrication and a little bit of TLC with some Scotch-Brite and so on. So I'll wade in there later on and get that cleaned up. The shaft looks in reasonably good condition. There's no real rust. The sleeve inside looks good. Once again, I think we've lucked out here. Somebody oiled this. They over-oiled it, and that may have been the saving grace here. A lot of greasy stuff to clean up, but it's going to shine underneath it. Let me put that sheave back over there. Now, let's walk our way straight up the drivetrain. Let's do the idler next. Now, in order to get the idler sheaves out, we're going to have to take the speed changer off. So let's that comes off fairly easily. Let me turn this around. I'm going to turn the speed changer. There's a little divot bite in the edge of the speed changer. Your Allen wrench, the 3/32 Allen wrench, fits down there, and you can feel around. And if you're lucky, you can actually find the Allen screw, and you just turn that until this thing pops off the shaft. And if it doesn't pop off the shaft, you know you're turning it the wrong way. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. There we go. All right. That removes the speed dial from the shaft. We look around here. That screw isn't tightened down. The teeth in the dial here are cast in, and they're in fairly good condition. I see only one tooth that is chipped, and the rest of them are okay. That's remarkable, really, because these aluminum gears do tend to get chewed up sometimes if people try to turn them when the machine is not on. There are 3 screws here that hold the speed changer in place. I'm going to take those out. In the back of the speed changer, on what we call the cork chop, there is a little loop of wire, and that loop of wire connects the pork chop to the floating sheave. I'm going to reach in the hole behind that, feel that, and find that it's already loose for some reason. Okay? If not, I would have had to loosen it. Okay, I'm going to take this out. This, by the way, is what I call the pork chop, and this is the wire loop that is already loose. This should have been connected to the floating sheave, and that's our first bad discovery. We're going to have to figure out why that's not connected. Lots of grease. The rack on the pork chop is in very good condition. I can't see a single tooth. A little wear, but nothing bad. The worm gear is in good condition. Okay. Everything but the pork chop, or everything but that little wire loop there, is a good thing. Now, let's. Okay. Now, with the speed changer out there, I don't know if you can see through here, but the floating sheave is loose on the shaft, and I've just got it off. I probably, little bit difficult to get out. You sort of have to walk it around, and I probably won't be able to get it out until I've taken the idler shaft out. So let's do that. We put these screws over here. Try to keep everything with the pieces that came out. Now there's something else here that I just noticed. There should have been a spring here. Right here there are two little detents, there's a spring that sits there, and it's called the anti-rattle spring. It pushes against the other side of the speed dial and keeps this from rattling, and that is not there. So once again, that's evidence that somebody else has been inside this headstock and apparently didn't know how to put it back together because they missed that. There's part one that we're going to have to buy, is that anti-rattle spring. Okay, let's go back to the idler shaft. There's a keeper screw right here that we'll take out, and at that point, okay, now we have to, where's our 5/32 inch Allen wrench, loosen the bolt that holds the idler shaft bearing. And I'm just going to go ahead and take this bolt out all the way. We want to, as we're doing this, we want to carefully inspect the ears right here. People who don't know how to care for these machines often over-tighten these ears and they crack. They can be re-welded if you can find somebody who really knows their stuff about welding aluminum, but isn't something that you necessarily want to do. Now, with that bolt loose and the keeper screw out, I'm going to turn this idler shaft to loosen the belt, and then the idler shaft should pull out, leaving the other sheave behind. Let's see. There we go. All right, there's the idler shaft. That's it's actually in very, very good shape. There's not any play in the bearing whatsoever, so we'll be able to make do with that. That's in good condition. That'll last another 30 years. Let's see if we can get the sheaves out. There's the idler sheave and the floating sheave. Okay. Now, in this vintage, the floating sheave had a little thing that sat in the back and spun. And what the let me show you how it should have been attached to the speed changer. Oh. Yeah, I know, Drew. I dropped two that time, so if we're keeping track. All right. The speed changer and the sheave sit in this like so. This pork chop here is a lever arm that pulls this floating sheave back and forth. Let me okay. As the arm moves, the sheave moves with it. Okay. This little wire hook here. Let me take that off the pork chop. Should have been fastened into this piece like so, but it wasn't, and hooked around the pork chop and held in place with that spring. Once again, like so. That didn't happen. That is coming out. This is probably another piece we're going to have to buy. We'll just get a floating sheave with a bearing in it. Though the newer ones are made much stronger and much better. I'm afraid that if I put this back in, since this is already let go, and at some time in the future, that this won't hold very well. So me put these things over here and pick up the screws I dropped. Incidentally, they weren't the right screws anyway. There's two different types of screws there. Okay, idler shaft is gone. Let's go up here and take out the arbor shaft. We can now inspect the poly V-belt, and it is in pretty sad condition. It's really cracking there, so that is definitely another one we're going to have to replace here. And there is a keeper inside here, and I have to find right there. It is a coil that fits inside a groove in there. It just pries out with a screwdriver, and then this part should come out. You just now I see right now there's a little, somebody has hit this at one point with with something, and it's put a little detent there. So I'll get a little file. Remove that. Let's make it smaller. All right, there is another way to do this. If you can't get that out, take your quill, loosen the Allen screw on top, retract the quill all the way, and then turn this so that the quill has a splined shaft in here that fits inside this drive sleeve. And if you turn the splines so they don't line up, you can then use this, hopefully, to push that out. There we go. All right. This is where you need the rubber hammer. Another way. Let's just take the quill out altogether. Let me stop that right there. And Drew is going to hand me a dowel. Thank you. And now I'm going to put turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put the dowel in here and try to tap this out. Well, I can tell where the detents are because I can see the scratches happening. So let me have that back in. There we go. It's coming down. This is the piece we were fighting to get out, and this is the drive shaft. The bearing is both bearings appear to be in good shape. This, yeah, that's in reasonable condition, really. There's a lot of rust on it. It's going to have to be cleaned a lot of fine dust on there. I'm hoping that fine dust hasn't sucked the grease out of the bearings. It shouldn't. They're seal bearings, but I'm going to show these to Sue and see if she thinks they should be replaced. Any rate, nothing more than grease and rust to get rid of right there. And we've got the quill out. Now, might as well go ahead and take the quill lock off. Take the quill lever, the quill lock, and the spring washer off of this side. Now we'll take the depth lock and the dial and these two knurled nuts off of the other side. Now there is an Allen screw on the top of this housing where the quill retraction spring is, and that needs to be loosened. Now there may be some putty or lead in that. In fact, there's just a little bit of this left. I dug it out before this session, and that then loosens the shaft in here. Now we'll have to tap here to loosen it. There we go. Once again, okay, now there's a little cotter key there that you don't want to lose, but this all looks in good shape. Again, the reason it didn't come out easily is because of a little bit of corrosion, and the stress really is on lube. It's not that bad, but it is very, very dirty and greasy. So put that aside. We've got all these pieces and parts we're accumulating. Let's see, this is the poly V belt, which we know we're going to have to replace. Now, for the big question, what about the motor? I'm going to loosen the switch in its socket here. The switch has a nut around the outside that I'm going to loosen with a screwdriver. Now I have got to tell you, just to be honest, they don't all come out this easily. In fact, before I started this session, I worked with this quite a bit to get this loosened up. It took a few healthy taps on the screwdriver with a hammer and quite a few blue words, but that loosened the switch, and I'm pushing the switch now down inside the Mark V. I'm going to, I see what is happening here. I'm going to take the screws out of the motor pan. Now there should be 5 screws, 2 on each side, 1 in the back. There are only 4. The one in the back is missing, par for the course, really. And we should be able to lift the top off of this headstock and leave the motor pan laying there in the pan. And then we can take a good look and see what our electric is like in here. All right. there's the headstock. Now, well, okay, I now know, just looking at this, and we may not want to come in close on this, I now know why that this line crackles when I turn it. Look at this. See that? Look. That is the white wire coming from the line. That's the neutral, and it is just as brittle as as brittle as glass. It's broken in several places. The other wires don't seem to be anywhere nearly as bad, but I do not want to run this thing with the wire in that condition. We're going to have to, fortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have to replace the motor wires. The motor wires appear to be in good shape, and I'm going to check right now, and this is a 1 1/8 horsepower motor, so we won't, that's a good thing. I won't worry about replacing the motor if this one is good. It doesn't look to be burned up. There's no smell of ozone. Of course, by this time there wouldn't be. But I'm going to replace the cord and get rid of that one crackly white wire. This is an excellent argument for not turning this thing on when you first get it home. You really don't know what this thing is like on the inside, especially a machine this old. This is the switch. We can put a jumper on the switch here. Let's see if we can just see if the switch is good. It's a little ohm meter here. Okay. Okay, switch is good. So we won't need to replace the switch. So let's go over what we need to get in order to get this running. We're going to need a power cord, obviously. We're going to need the anti-vibration spring that goes in here. We're going to need all new screws because the screws are bad. There's one more thing I need to check, and I'll show you if you want to come in and take a look at the wedges here. Take a look at those. As you can see, there's a little wear, but I'm feeling this with my fingernail, and those wedge surfaces are still pretty flat. There's just a little bit of a detent in this one. These wedges work best when those surfaces are absolutely flat, and they really don't cost that much. So I think I'm going to replace them anyway. But this would be a call on your part. I'm only going to replace them, quite frankly, because all I have to do is walk into the factory and get a couple. These would be perfectly serviceable for a long, long time if we didn't want to do that. All right, so a couple of wedges, anti-vibration spring, all the screws that hold it together, drive belt, poly V belt, a floating sheave, and I think that's about it. So we're going to fade to black now, and when we come back, I'll have all that stuff, and we'll put this thing together. I'll have also cleaned this up. You don't need me to watch me with wasting a gallon of mineral spirits getting this thing clean. So, see you in a bit. Okay, I'm cleaning up the last of the parts right here, and if you can see, I've got a nice shine on the medallions and the dial. I've also gone out and gathered the parts I need to put this back to rights, and I've got some bad news. While I was cleaning this up, and this will happen as you clean up parts. You get intimately involved with what's going on. I discovered quite a bit new that worn parts that were I hadn't completely seen what was going on because of the grease, the dirt in the way, or just my hurry to get this thing stripped down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back over and show you why I made the decisions I made, why I'm keeping some parts and replacing others. By the way, when we cleaned this up, let me show you a couple of things that are absolutely you can't do without. A little plastic bowl that you can fill with mineral spirits, and a brass brush and a nylon brush. Don't use a steel brush. You may damage some of the soft aluminum parts for cleaning up. I also used a wire brush on a drill, and of course a lot of Scotch-Brite and wet dry sandpaper and crocus cloth to get all these things clean and bright. Well, as I began to clean, I noticed. Let's start with the drivetrain here. This is the drive shaft, and I thought that these bearings might respond a little bit to some TLC, but it wasn't grease or dried sawdust and oil in there. These bearings are actually both extremely dry. No way to save those. We could pop off the covers perhaps and shoot a little grease in there, but that's only a stopgap measure. I decided just to go ahead and get a brand new drive shaft with new bearings and a new nylon coupler for the Quill. The Quill was another problem. I had originally thought that this Quill was a two-bearing Quill. I had put this, you watched me, I put this down here and hit this little piece down there and thought that was a bearing. Actually, that's nothing more than a snap washer around the splined Quill. Actually, this goes all the way down, as you can see, all the way down. So there it is, just a one-bearing Quill. Furthermore, if you take this shaft and work it sideways, you can see that bearing, there are definite problems with it. So we decided to bite the bullet on this too and just get ourselves a brand new two-bearing Quill. The single-bearing Quill had a problem with accuracy. The run out on this could be, when the bearing was new, could be as much as 0.005 of an inch. The run out on these new two-bearing Quills is only 1/1000 of an inch. All right, going on down the drivetrain from the drive shaft to the idler shaft. When we started cleaning up the idler shaft, I had thought that this portion of it, at least, was salvageable, but we noticed that the bearing here, and this bearing is part of the shaft. You cannot go out and just replace this bearing. The bearing is actually the inner race. The seal on the bearing had been mashed fairly badly, and of course that's a recipe for a disaster. Sooner or later, the grease is going to start to leak out, and the bearing will dry up. While we're doing all this work, we might as well go and replace that too. Also, we were missing a part here. There's a little snap ring that goes around this shaft. That was gone, and we had already decided that we were going to have to replace the control sheave because of the fact that this bearing at the end was badly worn, and this wire keeper that hooks over the pork chop on the speed changer had become bent, and even though we can bend it back, it's at this point it's fatigued and it's just going to come off again. So again, rather than try to rebuild all of this, it's sometimes just wiser to go with all new and something with all the, there's the little cotter keeper there that needs to be there, and this is the floating sheave is not, or the control sheave is nicely matched to the idler sheave. The speed changer was something else we thought we could get away with new, but once we cleaned it up, we began to notice a few things. For one thing, because the bearing on the back of the control sheave was apparently boogered up at some point, it wore into the pork chop fairly badly, and this will just keep getting worse and worse as time goes on. Also, we noticed that for some reason these ears on this casting had been bent outwards, and they had put shims in there to keep it in place, but it wasn't in place. If you put this together and look at it in the casting, you'll see that this little nub here on the end of the control, or the control sheave, actually only hits about half of this pork chop. That probably is the reason why it eventually twisted this wire keeper off. So once again, we decided we're going to have to replace that with new. So here it be. We've already discussed why the belts have to be replaced. The poly V belt was crackled, so we need a new one. If you look at the new drive belt and the old drive belt, you can see just how worn it was. The new drive belt is just a little bit wider than half an inch, and this is down way below 7/16 of an inch. At this point, you could not even get the proper speeds out of the belt, let alone trust it to wear to be serviceable for very long. We did have some other parts that we found that we could use. Fortunately, when I got the Quill retraction mechanism all cleaned up, it was just like new. Very little wear, a few little shiny spots on the teeth, but almost no wear on that. That was well cared for. When we cleaned up the fan sheave on the motor, and you remember that was completely frozen. Now it slides as smooth as glass. All it was just some dried up oil that had mixed with dirt and sawdust, and once we got that dissolved away, it just worked like it was new. The couple of pieces were rusty. You know, that's one of the fortunate things about this headstock. There's so much aluminum here that it really doesn't get rusty. The aluminum, as it reacts with oxygen, builds up a black powder on the outside, a sort of an oxide, but never gets pitted. Never gets eaten away like the metal parts do. This little piece right here was rusty. We fixed that with a good stiff brushing, and I coated it with some fast-drying outdoor lacquer to keep it from rusting again. The same way with the inside of the motor housing. There was quite a bit of rust in there. Nothing bad, nothing that was eating through the pan, but there was a fair amount of rust. I took some navel jelly, applied the navel jelly, wiped out as much of the rust as I could, then cleaned the inside thoroughly, and once again hit it with some lacquer to prevent it from rusting again. The last thing that we have to do here is we still don't know whether or not the motor is working. I didn't want to test the motor because the power cord was so incredibly bad here. When we took this apart, the insulation just fell off the white wire, and I don't know if you could hear that, but it just crackles inside there. So this is just junk or salvage since it's copper. But I've got a new wire here, much heavier duty than the old one, and this is the strain relief that goes around the wire where it goes into the motor pan. Now, because the wire and the strain relief of the old wire was somewhat less in diameter, this is not going to fit in that hole. We're going to have to enlarge the hole in the motor pan to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And we're going to do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and install this new wire so we can test this motor. When you buy a new wire, it will come with directions and it will tell you if you have an older motor pan, you need to enlarge the hole. I suggest that instead of the recommended twist bit, though, you go get an inexpensive step bit. These bits are kind of shaped like the old ziggurats in Babylon. We've all seen in pictures. They're kind of one step after the other, and each step is a different diameter. Now, I have put a piece of masking tape around this at 3/4 of an inch so that I don't go any deeper than that. I've also begun drilling this so you don't have to watch me go down through 5 or 6 steps, and I have one more step to go. And it's much easier when you're dealing with sheet metal to use these step bits than it is twist bits. They don't. I won't say they don't grab, but they don't grab as much. Now, just to keep this thing steady, we've clamped this together side to side to keep it from spreading, and then we've clamped the clamp to the workbench. Let me go down one step here. There we go. That's all it takes. There is some grabbing, but it's not nearly as bad as you would get. Now I'm going to check that just to make sure I did stop. Okay, 0.751. I'd say that's pretty good. All right, put this over here. All right, let's put the motor back in the pan and put the wire up through the pan, maybe not necessarily in that order. The motor is going to, or the wire is going to have to go up past the motor and reach the switch. So if this is the white wire and it attaches right there, and we come down to the motor pan, about right there is where this wire needs to come into the pan. I'm going to get a little wax pencil here and mark that so I know where that is. Put that through here. Put the strain relief around it. Okay, now comes the fun part. I need to get a pair of pliers and squeeze that so that it fits in the hole, and then when I release it, it will lock itself in if I've done everything correctly. Come on. Come on. Oh. You guys are good luck. I'm never this lucky. Usually with these strain reliefs, I have to lose my religion at least 3 or 4 times to get those in. But there you go. That's how you install that. Now let's put the motor in. I'm going to go ahead and take the sheave off. We don't need to install the sheave just to test the motor. Now I've put all the bolts and nuts that I'm keeping in, or that I need in these boxes. The ones that are from the ones that are from the headstock that I can still use are here in this large box. Those of you who faithfully watched these sawdust sessions may remember I did a bandsaw box a while back and did a little bit of nesting with bingo boxes, and I finally have found a use for them. The large box is for the old nuts and bolts that are still useful. Then there's a box of parts that I had to buy. The snap ring on the end of the shaft of this motor was bad, so we had to replace that. There's a snap ring in there. When I got into the speed changer, I realized that not only was the anti-rattle spring for the speed dial missing, the other anti-rattle spring for the crank was actually missing as well. So both of those are in there. And then we went out this morning and got a bunch of stainless steel screws for the motor pan and the outside here. I prefer to replace the screws here with stainless steel simply because you don't have to worry about the corrosion. The motor has a non-standard motor mount on it, and it just simply bolts, as you can see, to the bottom of the motor pan with 4 short Allen screws. Okay, let's have to loosen a couple of these and get that to shift. Sometimes you just need to roll this over and over until you get gravity to work for you. The motor is not especially heavy. It's about 20 or 30 pounds. It's not lightweight either. All right, motor is remounted in the pan. Let me bring somewhere, there it is. Now we've got the pan in the headstock cradle. There are 2 wires coming out of this motor, a green one and a white one. There are 3 wires coming out of the power cord, a green, a white, and a black. The green is your ground, of course, and I'm going to take off this is the green ground wire that we cut off of the power cord. I'm going to throw that away and put the new ground on here. There we go. Now, probably when we get to actually installing this in the headstock, I'm going to have to peel back this insulation in order to free up some of that white wire. I don't know why they make these white. Look at how much lead they gave me on the black wire, but only that much on the white wire. I have no idea why it's so, but that's the way it goes. Now I attach the white wire to where on the side of the switch where the other white wire is. Okay, so it's white and white on, as I look at the back of the switch, on the right-hand side, and it's green and black on the left-hand side. So there's the switch. Now we know that the switch goes in like this with the tabs down. So this would be off, that would be on. We'll put that off, okay? And I am going to get a pair of, I'm going to go back and get those pliers I had. Since the pliers are insulated, I can hold that like that with and flip the switch without endangering myself. So let's plug this in and see if we at least have a motor. That's good. No popping and crackling. You don't get much better than that. Oh, that's a sweet sound. Okay. Well, that finishes up the field strip and the cleanup. We have all the parts that we need. There's a lot more to putting this headstock back together than I thought there would be, but we'll get it done. Over the next few sauna sessions, I'll take you through the drivetrain, the Quill, and replacing the wedge locks. So, if you got any questions, send them in.